Dear colleagues, good morning. My name is Catarina de Albuquerque. I am the UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights to water and sanitation, and I am happy to have been invited to address you to talk about a subject that is very dear to me: gender mainstreaming, and how I managed or not to do it in my work. I tried. The UN resolution that created my mandate asked me explicitly to look at issues of discrimination, and well, it's obvious that when you talk about access to water and sanitation, women's rights stay at the center. And of course, you understand immediately, and you see immediately when talking with people going on mission, that women's rights are impacted differently by lack of access to water and sanitation. I've met women who have suffered violence, including sexual violence, because of the distance they had to walk to get access to water, or to get access to sanitation, to defecate in the open behind a bush. An issue. So these are issues that I constantly raise in my and that I'm confronted with in my country missions, but also when I organize experts meetings to prepare thematic reports, like my first report, which was on sanitation, where somebody from WaterAid told me women are, we realized, they said that women are more frequently bitten by snakes than men, and they didn't understand why, and it's simply because women sneak out of the village to hide behind the bush in the dark to be able to defecate, and because they do it so silently, they don't scare off the snakes, and the snakes bite them. So there are lots of stories regarding the impact of lack of access to water and sanitation on women. When I presented my first report on sanitation, I said that, in my opinion, sanitation does include menstrual hygiene management. And this is an issue that has been accompanying me in my work while drafting thematic reports, but also on mission. And it's an issue that I've brought always. Maybe I was lucky to be a woman, to be able to raise this issue easily with women and with girls. I always go to schools, always ask girls the same questions. What do you do when you are menstruating? I ask mothers, what do you do when you are menstruating, or when your girls are menstruating? Do they go to school? Very often the question is no, they don't go to school 5 days a week, or like in Tuvalu, a Pacific island state, the mother told me, well, I don't have the money to buy the sanitary taps plus pay for the bus fare for her to go to school. So she has to choose. Either she walks for hours, or she and gets sanitary pads, or she stays at home. So I see menstrual hygiene management as a kind of a proxy indicator to assess discrimination against women and girls, and in order also to assess how the realization of girls and women's rights is put at the center of policy making. I address also this issue with governments, and very often what I see is embarrassment, red faces, blushed faces. But like in Kenya, which was my last mission in July, the government reacted very naturally and explained that they are taking measures to ensure menstrual hygiene management everywhere. I've been working a lot also with UN agencies, and UN agencies like UNICEF have facilitated visits that I've undertaken to schools, but also to refugee camps, as in Jordan, to the Zatari refugee camp, where I met with women, discussed menstrual hygiene, access to sanitation, etc. So this is obviously of great benefit to me. Since my interpreters were men in Jordan, it was with somebody from UNICEF, a woman, that I talked with the women in the camp, with the women and girls in the camp, about menstrual hygiene management. So there is this benefit. But I've also tried to mainstream human rights and infiltrate human rights in the work these organizations are doing. I chaired and also participated, I chaired and hence participated, of course, in a working group that was set up in order to discuss among 200 experts from the whole world, ideas for post-2015 goals, targets and indicators in the area of water and sanitation. And I chaired the working group on the elimination of inequalities. And one thing that I was constantly saying in the group was, talking about access to sanitation, for example, is not enough to ensure women's rights. And what I was saying was, very often, in certain cultures, women are not allowed to share the same toilet as their father-in-law, or in normal times, or when they are menstruating. So having access does not mean that they are getting that they are using it. So what I was fighting for with my team was to integrate indicators in the new monitoring tools that will come after 2015. That will measure not only the progressive elimination of inequalities, which is something that we did, but also I challenged the statisticians and the economists and people who have the knowledge that I don't, to find ways to making sure that intra-household inequalities are also measured, and that it's not only the male household head of household who is interviewed, but also that women are interviewed, and that you really assess gender inequalities inside the home. I think it was a success that all these concerns were taken into account by the sector specialists, experts, and that we now have an official proposal that takes this into account. Also, the WHO UNICEF latest progress report on water and sanitation has a whole chapter, the report from this year, 2014, has a whole chapter about elimination of inequalities. Today, I saw an article by a World Bank blogger on elimination of inequalities and also paying attention to women. So I think these are all encouraging signs that show us that our work as special rapporteurs with people from the different sectors that we are working with can produce change and can make women's rights and issues regarding inequalities become more central, more visible, and trigger action from those who have the power and the money to change the situation that we are witnessing. So, to conclude, I think that this type of interaction is beneficial for both sides, and I think it's a way to improve, to promote human rights, gender, elimination of inequalities, etc. I'm sorry I talked too much. Thank you for your attention.